This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. Sometimes love is blind, and sometimes it's a crazy mega-billionaire with an uber-controlling mom. It's Crazy Rich Asians, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. As the intro stated, this episode is about the 2018 hit rom-com drama, Crazy Rich Asians. Most rom-coms are also dramas, but sort of inherent in the genre. But yeah, Crazy Rich Asians is what we're talking about this week. Katie, you read the book. We're back to normal. Mm-hmm. I did not. We watched the film last night, and before we get started, there will be spoilers throughout, including in our first segment. Let me sum up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
If you have not seen the film or watched it, if you have HBO right now to watch Game of Thrones, one, I'm sorry, and two, we're not going to get into that. And two, if you're enjoying it, I'm glad for you. I haven't hated it. It's again, no, it's not.
Yeah,
I don't even want to get into it. But two, Crazy Rich Asians is available to watch on HBO now /Go. But first, Katie, you're going to summarize the book.
Actually, what I'm going to do is read the back of the book.
Okay, that works.
Because I don't think there's any way I could summarize this in less than 10 minutes.
All right, well then let's just go with the back of the book, and I'll try to do the movie here in a second. Go for it.
All right. When New Yorker Rachel Chu agrees on a summer in Singapore to visit her boyfriend's traditional Chinese family, she expects the trip to be relaxing, if a little dull. She has no idea. Nick's childhood home is a palace. He grew up riding in more private planes than cars. Oh, and Nick just happens to be one of Asia's most eligible bachelors, and his formidable mother isn't so sure Rachel is the right one for him.
All right, that was succinct. Okay, so the movie, Crazy Rich Asians. Nick and Rachel are a young, hot New York couple. Rachel is a professor of game theory at NYU, and Nick is handsome. Well, I have questions about that. We'll talk about later. They've been dating for about a year. Nick decides, hey, he's from Singapore. She's a second generation Chinese American immigrant. He goes, hey, I want you, I've been dating for a year. I want you to come visit my family. My best friend's getting married in Singapore. Yeah, we should go and you'll meet my family and everything, blah, blah, blah. Let's do that. So they go. She gets over there. She meets his family, also meets up with her friend who she was in college with, who's also from Singapore and lives in Singapore. A lot of hijinks ensue. She finds out as she's on the way over there that Nick comes from a very wealthy Singapore business family, literally like billions of dollars. Old money, very traditional, and that's sort of the crux of the drama of the film, is that she's this sort of no name, no body, a normal person from America. And she is Chinese, and like I said, like first generation, but she's not, from a big old rich family, which his very traditional mother, Nick's very traditional mother, wants him to be with a daughter who wants to marry to another,
someone from their circle,
somebody from their level, another upper crust, top 1% rich family, to merge their families like the Baratheons and the Lannisters. And so she's upset with her, and there's kind of a lot of back and forth between them about her trying to prove that she's worthy and blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, Nick proposes to her after a bunch of nonsense happens. She turns him down, though, but then turns this around on the mother and tells her, look, Nick proposed to me, but I said no. And I want you to know that, when you looking in the years from now, when you have a Nick's with whoever he marries, know that a life he has and that you wanted him to have is because of me and because I told him no. And she will talk about why she then decides to give Nick her blessing to marry Rachel. He stops her on a plane, proposes, and they live happily ever after until the sequel, I'm sure. When I'm sure more drama happens. But that's basically kind of the plot. And there's lots of extravagant parties in the meantime. So that's the rough plot of Crazy Rich Asians. Let's get into, do we have Guess Who?
Yes, we do.
Sweet, let's do Guess Who.
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Get used to disappointment.
Okay.
So we have 6. I narrowed this down a lot. We could have done.
There's a lot of
a
characters
billion.
because the family. There
are even more characters in the book.
I can imagine,
and everyone gets a description. Everyone.
I can imagine.
But I have narrowed it down to 6.
I'm gonna be bad with names because some of them I feel like we only got their name once.
Yeah.
When they were first introduced, but I will do my best to describe which character I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. Okay. Everything about her, from the dewy, just back from a morning run on the beach complexion to the obsidian black hair that stopped just short of her collarbone, conveyed a natural, uncomplicated beauty.
Well, the natural, uncomplicated beauty sounds like Rachel, based on that description. And she does have shorter hair than like Astrid and many of the other of Nick's relatives have like longer, sort of maybe more traditional hair, where hers is a little more short and fun. And it does stop probably about her collarbone. So I'm going to say that that's Rachel.
It is a description of Rachel.
Boom. That was probably going to be maybe the easiest one, if I had to guess. Maybe not. Maybe her friend might be easy, potentially. We'll see.
Okay. Unlike the other fellows with their regulation Indian barbershop haircuts, he had perfectly tousled black hair, chiseled Cantonese pop idol features, and impossibly thick eyelashes.
Okay. So this could be Nick, but it also, I think the only person who has like tousled hair is his best friend, who I can't remember his name of. Everybody else has sort of.
His best friend was Colin.
Most of them, have that sort of like high and tight type of thing. I mean, which Nick kind of does in the movie, but I mean, he's got his top's a little longer. I'm gonna guess that that's probably Nick.
It is the very dreamy Nick.
Okay, there you go.
He's dreamy.
He is dreamy.
Before her stood a striking woman in a trendy scoop neck top, black leggings, and ballet flats, with fashionably shagged chin-length hair.
Shagged chin-length hair. That doesn't describe Astrid in the movie. She's very, like, glam and, like, model-y. It could be... Boy, there's so many characters in this movie. There's, like, a million characters in this movie. Like, it could be any one of the freaking stepsisters. It could be the lawyer. It could be Colin's fiance. It could, I'm gonna say that is Colin's fiance.
It's actually Nick's mother.
Oh,
it's Eleanor.
Interesting.
Yeah, her whole thing in the book is that she looks a lot younger than she is.
Because she doesn't look younger than she is in the movie.
No, she doesn't.
It's what's that? I can't remember that actress's name. But she's great for the role because she plays a very great, stern.
Yeah, she's very formidable.
Woman, but she doesn't strike me as young. That description in the movie, but.
Next to him stood a girl dressed in a lemon yellow and white striped tube dress that clung to her body like a sausage casing. Her hair extensions, false eyelashes, and frosty pink lipstick stood out dramatically, and as they approached, Rachel realized that the white stripes on the girl's dress were actually sheer, with her engorged nipples clearly showing through.
Well, that's not in the movie, but who that would be is this character, and I do not know her name. She wears a yellow dress and is very gaudy. I don't know her name. She's dating one of the brothers or cousins of Nick, and they eventually hoist her off onto one of Colin's groomsmen, who I don't remember his name. I don't know. Like, I don't even. And they're all.
You did a really good job sussing that out.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I don't even know a lot of the people, like their relations. I don't know that Colin's groomman, that guy. I don't know if he's like a cousin or a brother or just a friend. Like, so I'm gonna say it's that girl though.
So you're right.
Okay.
Her name is Kitty.
Kitty. I do not remember
she
that.
She was with one of Nick's cousins.
Cousins. Okay, that's what I thought it was.
And they foist her off onto Bernard.
Yeah.
Who's the really obnoxious guy.
Groomsman. But do we know his is he related or?
I don't think so. I think they're just family friends.
Yes. Her. That was my yes. Yep.
You are correct.
Okay. Kitty. I did not realize that was her name or nickname.
And she wears that, by the by, this get-up
Does
that
she?
I just described. Not in the movie. But this get-up that I just described with like her nipples on display and everything, she wears that to like a family dinner at his grandmother's house.
Nice.
Really very classy.
Very classy.
Okay, next one. One could say that her eyes were set too far apart, and her jawline, so similar to the men on her mother's side, was too prominent for a girl. Yet somehow, with her delicate nose, bee-stung lips, and long, naturally wavy hair, it all came together to form an inexplicably alluring vision.
Astrid.
That is Astrid.
Yep.
You nailed that one.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily exactly match the actress, Gemma Chan, I believe, plays her in the movie, but the nature, that description matches her character.
Yeah.
Maybe less so than the actual actress who plays her, but something about that description very clearly screams Astrid to me.
Yeah, she's supposed to be like incredibly beautiful, but like uniquely beautiful.
And that it's also described in sort of a androgynous way to some extent, where she has some masculine, more, traditionally masculine features, like her jaw and that sort of thing, and her eyes maybe, to the point where that to me feels like what Astrid is supposed to kind of, like, again, very formidable, like a Gwendolyn Christie or something. I don't know. Anyways.
Okay, last one.
Got 3 right, I think. 4? 3? I've missed at least one.
You missed Eleanor.
Yeah, is that the only one I missed?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm 4 for 5?
Yeah, we're 4 for 5 right now.
Nice.
Okay. With her broad nose, round face, and slightly squinty eyes, she was not a natural-born raving beauty. But what she was one of those girls who knew how to make the most of what she had. And what she had was a voluptuous body and the confidence to pull off bold fashion choices.
Okay, so I'm assuming this might be Pangolin, but she doesn't have a voluptuous body in the movie. But she does have bold fashion choices. But she plays much more of almost like a tomboy kind of look in the movie to some extent. But she does have the confidence. I would say that that's probably Pangolin.
Is that how they pronounce her name?
I don't know. I have a question about it later.
Okay, because in the book, it
Peg?
looks like it's pronounced Peaklin.
Okay, they say Peglin, I thought, or Peglin maybe.
I don't know,
because it was something because I have a question and we'll talk about it shortly.
Okay.
But I have a question about what her name is because I wasn't sure in the movie, because there's an animal called a pangolin.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe that was like a nickname that they called her based on that animal or something.
Oh, I don't.
Okay.
It's not in the book.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it very shortly here in my segment about what her name actually is. But it was either Peglin or Penguin. Peglin or something was what they called her. Because I thought I should call her Peg sometimes for short, but I could be wrong. And I don't know. Is it her?
Yes.
Hey, all right, cool.
She does not have short dyed blonde hair in the book. Her hair is long and black. She wears it in like a high ponytail at one point.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was not bad. 5 for 6.
No,
those were all like the
it's
main
not bad at
characters,
all.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably could have picked a bunch of like obscure.
I could have picked a lot of really
obscure cousins
characters
and stuff that I would have been like,
and just really thrown you for a loop.
Yeah, but those are all kind of main characters, so it wasn't too bad. All right, let's move on to Was That in the Book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Honestly, don't you two read?
All right, I have a fair amount of questions here. Try to get through them fairly quickly, so this isn't a forever long episode. This movie opens, which I thought was an interesting choice, and I think I get it. But I thought it was interesting, and I was wondering if maybe that's like the first page of the book. It opens with a quote from Napoleon. It says, "Let China slumber, for when they awaken, they will be formidable," or something like that. Basically, like a quote of Napoleon's. Saying, let's not mess with China, because if we ever mess with China, it's going to get real, basically. Like they're a sleeping giant, essentially.
Yes, that actually is in the book.
Okay.
The book is divided into 3 parts, and each part is prefaced with a different quote, and that particular quote is the opener to part 3.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the only one in the movie. It's just the opening before the movie starts that shows up. They're not like... They don't have multiple, at least that I noticed in the movie. So, okay, interesting. And like I said, I think it makes sense in the context of the film. It was just a little like, before getting into it, I was a little like, well, I don't know. Yeah, it was just interesting. It was like to start the movie that's like a rom-com with like a Napoleon quote about the sleeping giant of China felt. But I think for the cultural touchstone that this film is / was, I can kind of see why they chose to include that.
Yeah.
Anyways. So before they leave to go to Singapore, they're in a restaurant and they're having dessert, and he invites her to come to Singapore to meet his family. And there's another couple, I guess they're cousins or something, because
they're like from the same social circle.
The same social circle in Singapore and in the same restaurant, and they overhear it and they notice it's Nick. And they like snap a picture, and then this gets bounced around the world, and like instantaneously his mother gets texted and finds out that Nick is bringing a girl to the wedding, and she calls Nick while he's still at the restaurant with Rachel after he asked her like, mere minutes ago. Does that happen in the movie or in the book?
Sort of. I thought that was a cool scene.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. It was interesting. Yeah.
And I thought it was like a kind of a cool, interesting representation of what kind of happens in the book. So it starts out similarly, and they are spotted at the restaurant by a couple of girls who are from his social circle in Singapore. And she does manage to snap a picture, but they don't actually find out who she is. They think she's like a different Rachel Chu for a while. And his mom does find out, like, kind of through the grapevine, but it's not like instantaneously.
She doesn't call them while they're at the restaurant.
While they're still sitting there.
But I think that does work to sort of drive home.
Oh, it really drives home the point.
The point of how connected and sort of tight-knit this community is, and everybody knows everybody, and then everybody talks constantly. And to have it be that instantaneous thing, it's a little silly, but it works for the point they're trying to drive home in the film. So, okay. Is Astrid compulsive about hiding all of her millions of dollars that she spends on jewelry and clothes from her commoner husband?
This is another sort of. It's not as intense as the movie.
The movie amps it up to kind of play it out in the
She does go shopping. Like, she likes to buy like couture clothing, and she puts it all in a closet. Like, they have a big closet. But she's not like Oh my gosh.
stashing it
Hide it everywhere.
Stashing it like
things.
under napkins in the drawer.
Yeah, in
and
random drawers.
Like on top of.
I was kind of like, all right, in
Yeah.
that scene.
I mean, again, it's similar to the last one where it gets the point across. It's what you kind of have to do when you're truncating. You know, this is what, a 400-page book or something. When you're trying to set up those kind of character or introduce those important character elements that are going to inform what happens later in the story, it's not the worst idea to amp it up to drive the point home.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it does make it a little more. It takes the movie into a sort of comical, not farce, but like, what's the word? Almost a surreal, like a. I guess it feels overtuned to reality.
Like, to me, having read the book, I guess that part of it felt to me a little more like farcical and overtuned than the text message detective work felt.
Right. Okay. And this is where I have this question here. Is Pangolin/Pangolin, and I have sick because I don't know which it is or what it is. So first question.
The next question, you called her Peg.
Yeah, because I swear that's what her sister said, or what Rachel calls her is like Peg. So I only asked Pangolin, and I said, is she saying Pang? Because that's an animal. I knew that was an animal, and I was like, and I think it's an animal from Asia. Like from from China, so I thought maybe it's just like a nickname for her, like based on this animal or something, like calling somebody monkey or or something. I don't know. Do you know what her actual name is?
Her name in the book is it's 2 words.
Oh, okay.
And it's Peik.
Peik.
And then Lin.
Peiklin. Okay.
Peiklin or Peaklin.
Peaklin.
I'm trying to look up to find out exactly how it's pronounced.
Well, then in the movie, because in the movie to me it sounds like they're saying Peglin, so they're probably saying Peiklin or Peiklin.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because that's what I heard. I heard a G instead of a K.
Yeah, because they do say it really fast.
Yeah, so it's probably Peiklin.
Peiklin. Okay. I'll settle on that.
All right, that works. In the movie or in the book is once Rachel gets to China or to Singapore, she meets up with Peiklin because, again, they were roommates in college, I believe is what the premise is. And she has lunch with them, and they are like obnoxious new money folks. And now the moral that kind of comes around is that they end up, they seem really obnoxious at first because they kind of just come out and say everything they're thinking, and like they're just super forward, and it comes off as abrasive and obnoxious, but they end up being very accommodating for her when she has her sort of falling out with Nick's family later, and they end up realizing that they're very sincere people and loving and that sort of thing, although they're a little abrasive. At least that's how the movie kind of portrays them. But are they that new money? Like they're eating like KFC and McDonald's like on gold platters, and like she says they make a joke about modeling their decor off Donald Trump's bathroom, and so that's from the book. Okay, and that's what I figured, because that is, I know that's the little I do know of the sort of the social situation, and they talk about it in the movie, is that there's a whole lot of new money in Singapore and in China because of like tech companies, and which I don't know what her dad does exactly. Do you remember what they said? They say it in the movie, and now I can't remember. I don't remember
in the movie. In the book, it's like real estate, I think.
Okay, yeah, I think that's right. Well, I know, Rachel's family, or not Rachel, Nick family owns a lot of real estate, because Astrid owns, like, she's like, I own like 14 apartment buildings.
Yeah, but they've been doing it for a lot longer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But so they're obnoxious new money, and they eat like chicken nuggets.
Yeah, they are in the book. They do eat chicken nuggets off of like gold platters.
Perfect.
Yes.
And then after that, Peg has a Peg. I don't know. I swear she calls her Peg, but I guess not. says she'll drop Rachel off at Nick's family's for the party because she wants to see Nick's family's house because they're the Chews and they're super rich, or Youngs.
They're the Youngs.
And they're super rich, and she's always wanted to see their mansion because they're like one of the richest families in Singapore or whatever. And she gets there, and then Nick invites her in, Pakeling in, and she opens her trunk and has, well, the trunk, which is in the front on this Audi or whatever, and she has like a cocktail dress, a club dress. She has like a whole bunch of outfits in bags in her trunk. Is that?
No, that's not in the book.
Because I was like, she shows up there and she's wearing like animal, like not even animal print. Like when I say animal print, I mean like it's print of animals on like pajamas
or something.
Like,
yeah, they look
almost like pajamas. And I'm like, are you gonna go into this fancy party like that? But she's got
backup
clothes.
She's got it handled.
Yeah,
she's got it handled.
She does
Don't
have
worry.
backup clothes. Okay, so no backup dresses in the trunk of her car. Does she go to the party though?
No, she doesn't get invited in.
I think that's fun. She's a fun character, so they probably wanted to.
Yeah, I have a note about her later.
Mix her up a little bit more into stuff. Eventually, so the whole reason they're at this party or in Singapore is for Colin's, which is Nick's best friend's wedding, and they go to his bachelor. They have a bachelor weekend, and Rachel goes with the girls, and Nick goes with the guys. And the bachelor party is set up by Bernard, the obnoxious dude.
Yes.
The obnoxious douche. And he has set up this this bachelor party on a container ship in international waters. Is that where their bachelor party is in the book?
I think they are on a boat for part of the bachelor weekend, but I don't recall that it was a container ship.
Okay. Because it's literally a container ship where, like, from the outside, other than the fact that it says Colin's bachelor party, it just looks like a normal container ship, but it's like the containers are all missing in the middle, and it's like a party cave.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's for privacy, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's wild. And international waters, I think the idea is, like, we can do all the drugs we want, and it's legal because it's not under anybody. I don't know if that's actually true or not.
I don't know if that's true either, but
it
when
seems
you're
like
that
it's not.
rich, everything is legal for you.
True.
So.
When you have enough money, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Which we'll talk about, but this movie, I'm not sure comments on that as much as maybe it should.
I have thoughts on it.
I'm not sure this movie comments on sort of the wealth as much as it should.
I've got thoughts.
And I say that, I don't want to hold it to a standard above something, because there's a lot of movies that are especially in this type of genre, that don't.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to hold it to an unfair standard in that regard. Like Sex and the City movies, I feel like a lot, and that kind of stuff, a lot of times aren't commenting on sort of the wealth and the wealth. Especially, I've seen some of Sex and the City show, and that is, I mean, there may be episodes where it's kind of touched on, but most of the time that's not something that the show is like worried about commenting on. It's doing different things, and so I don't want to hold this movie to a different standard than any of the other media in the same genre. But it was one of those things. I don't watch a lot of that genre, so it's not something. But like for me, I was just like, man, ugh, all right. All right, so maybe on a container ship in the international waters, but definitely at least on a boat. So Rachel goes on the girls' bachelorette party weekend, and they're on like a private island.
Right.
And she meets up with this lawyer, the family lawyer. I guess somebody's family lawyer. I guess it's Colin's fiance's family lawyer, maybe. Or I don't know. Or
I don't know who you're
the young family
about.
lawyer. She's a lawyer. The girl who she meets.
The girl who used to date Nick.
Yeah, she says she's the legal counsel for the family.
Counsel?
That's what she says in the movie.
Saying that, I don't remember. I don't think she says that in the book.
Oh, okay. Because I call her a lawyer because she says I'm legal counsel for one of these families.
Okay,
That's what she says in the movie, and that's why I call her the lawyer. But yeah, Angela maybe
Mandy.
Mandy, yeah, she used.
I knew who you were talking about because of the question, but
she used to date. She used to date Nick, but she initially sets it up like she's like, I'm just the lawyer. I'm just here because I'm like the lawyer. So I don't know. It's what it sounded like. I could be wrong. And she seems really down to earth at first and kind of connects with Rachel, and they kind of like hang out together. But then she like this whole thing was a ploy, and she's actually only drawing Rachel in so that she can sort of like drop hints about how she's not. Basically kind of like poison her to the idea that she's not good enough to be with Nick. And then we see her eventually texting somebody, the other cousins or somebody,
some of the other girls.
Yeah, saying like, I got her. Like she's upset or whatever. Does that character do the same face turn heel? Okay,
so no. There is a character in the book named Mandy that Nick previously had a relationship with. But aside from like a couple tame digs, I thought they were fairly tame. She doesn't seem super interested in tormenting Rachel.
Yeah.
She's more like kind of got her own thing going on.
Right.
But what the movie did was combine her with another character, Francesca, who is a huge bitch and who does want to torment Rachel.
Okay. Because that was a roller coaster for me. Because when that character was first introduced and they like hit it off in the airport, and then like during that shopping spree and they're talking, I was like, I have a note about it in my odds and ends, but I was like, where's the slash fic where Rachel just runs off with this lawyer? Because they hit it off, and she seems like really down to earth and chill. And then at the same time that this is happening, we're cutting back and forth to Nick and his best friend ditching the boat party to go sit and drink beers on a thing, and they even make a joke about it in that scene. But I was like, where's the slash fic where John, because they seem like a better match, they're from the same circles. Nick and Colin are like from the same circles. They seem like they're like best friends. They seem like a great match. And Rachel and this lawyer, because the lawyer seems again kind of down to earth and not like I thought the implication was that she's not from these same social circles. She's their lawyer, so that's like she runs with them because she's their lawyer, but not because she's like from that was like the vibe I got when she was introduced, and I may have completely misread that. And I was like, I want that slash they each go their own ways, and Colin and Nick run off and marry each other, and Rachel and this lawyer run off and marry each other. But it's funny though, because in the scene Colin makes a joke, or Nick makes a joke, where they're sitting and him and Colin are sitting there drinking beers or whatever. And he says, Nick says something like, if only we could just marry each other or something. He like makes a joke about it, like, man, it'd be great if we could just get married. And I was like, I just wrote that down. But anyways, do they put a dead fish in Rachel's bed?
Yes, they do. That is in the book.
They go full Godfather moment, and in Godfather, I think it's part 1. I've never seen them. This is something we've discussed, but they put a severed horse head in somebody's bed.
I'm familiar with the cultural hallmark.
Yes. So they gut a fish and put it in her bed and tell her and write a note telling her she's not good enough, basically, and calling her a gold digger.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Yes.
On this bachelorette party weekend getaway. Oh, okay. Let's start talking about it. So eventually, Rachel decides, okay, I'm not going to let the mom push me around. I'm not going to let these people push me around. I'm going to go to this wedding, even though I know the mom doesn't want me there, because at this point the mom has basically told her, like, you'll never be good enough for my son. She's come out and said it. And Rachel's like, well, screw you. I'm going to go to this wedding anyways. And she goes to Paquelin, and it's like, I want to go to this wedding. Turn me into a fierce queen. And Paquelin and the gay cousin, or at least the stereotypically gay, like, that's, which I don't know his name. I'm sure
his name is Oliver.
Oliver, that's right. They give her a makeover, and I'm wondering if in the book, do they rich person makeover an already upper class beautiful woman into a more upper class, more beautiful woman?
There is a scene where Paquelin buys Rachel some expensive dresses to wear to like the different wedding festivities. But it is not quite the makeover scene that the movie gives us. And Oliver is not there. Okay. He's not part of it.
Which I thought was interesting. I mean, it's sort of tropey, but
yeah,
you know,
it's sort of tropey, but it's fun.
It's fun, yeah. Overall, I kind of enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of problems with it, and this was one of them. I was like, you know, there's something like I feel like this whole movie is simultaneously awful, and like the fact that they're like doing a makeover for, again, she's a professor at NYU. Mm-hmm. Living in New York, upwardly mobile, beautiful young woman, and they're like, we got to make you over so you can go to this like uber 1%, wedding or whatever. And I was like, but there is like, it's kind of weird and gross, but there's also like, it's also kind of fun because she's like a upper middle class academic, like infiltrating the bourgeoisie. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's a whole lot of leftist critique of this movie that could be done that I'm not smart enough or informed enough to do, but I would be interested to see it.
There's a whole lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to this film. Like, a lot of layers. But anyways, okay. Is the wedding of Colin and what was her name?
Araminta.
Wow, I do not remember that ever being said. Araminta.
Unless I'm mispronouncing it, which is totally possible.
I don't even remember that name being said. So, is their wedding like the world's most super duper extra wedding ever? Do they flood the aisle and have firefly lights?
The wedding is very extra. The reception is more extra.
Right. The reception in this movie was actually kind of tame compared to the wedding. Honestly, like the reception's at like a big, like super famous, like Singaporean, like landmark. And it's crazy, but like relative to the wedding, because I don't know. I thought the wedding was nuts.
Well, they don't flood the aisle.
Which was really cool.
book.
I'm surprised that's not a thing.
It was cool. Well, I started looking
thing?
it up because I was like, maybe that's some kind of like tradition that I don't know about.
Oh, no, I don't think that's a tradition.
Or something.
I think that's just an extra thing.
An extra like rich person thing?
I think that's just like what's going to be the super coolest thing we could do. And because they do kind of turn it, and they make a joke about turning it into like a rice paddy or whatever, like where it's they bring like all these plants in, and then I think the idea is to make it kind of look like a rice paddy or something, which are
I think it's supposed to look
generally.
like she's walking on water.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah, but like I said, like rice paddies have water
yes.
in them and that sort of thing, and the fireflies and everything that they have. And I was like, but no, like after this movie, and maybe it is, and it just hasn't been like. I feel like this would be a thing that brides would start wanting to do. You know what I mean? Like it's like one of those like that's because it's really cool in the movie. It
looks really cool.
It looks amazing, and it's also that level of extra of like I don't care that my dress is getting soaked.
Yeah. Because
this is so fucking cool thing. Which again, the extravagant wealth of this movie is disgusting, but it's truly horrifying.
You're such a lefty socialist. I love you.
Absolutely am, but it is disgusting. But I mean, at the same time, it is fun to look at. Like it is, it is fun.
But it's party fiction. It's wealth porn.
I know. I get it. But it is very much an inner conflict within me of. My inner commie going, what is happening? What are we watching? Versus like, wow, that's dope. That's really dope.
But no, they don't flood the aisle.
Yeah.
In the book.
Okay.
I did have the thought about her dress getting ruined, though.
Yeah, but again, that's the thing is that they're so rich.
So rich, it doesn't
matter. And she changes dresses for the reception, so like.
I mean, like you do. Yeah. When you have the money.
Is the grandma fake out a thing? Because that's interesting. So in the movie, the mom is super cold, and Rachel knows that the mom, Nick's mom, hates her the whole time and doesn't like her. But the grandma is very warm to her and seemingly warm and sort of accepting. And we see her being cold to the mom in the film, so we're thinking, ooh, maybe she'll be on Rachel's side. But then at the reception, she calls Rachel and Nick over, and then Grandma is a stone cold bitch. Is that fake out happen in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
She is initially polite and cordial to Rachel, but she changes her tune when she learns about like Rachel's father.
Because that's what it is in the movie, is that they hired a PI to investigate Rachel's family, yes. As you do.
And when she realizes that Nick is serious about Rachel. And her mom actually in the book is not dissimilar. She's initially kind of like polite, cordial.
She kind of is in the movie, but you can tell, even though like she's the kind of polite and cordial in the movie that you can tell that it's a facade.
Yeah.
Whereas the grandma just genuinely seems like, to me, it was just, it made sense once the twist did happen. I was like, I bought it completely, because it's just, the grandma is just a better actor than the mom is. You know what I mean? Or just hides her, you know, her what she's truly kind of feeling more or better than the mom does. There's a line towards the end, and this is a big climax, where after Nick proposes and Rachel turns him down, she has Nick's mom come to a mahjong hall, and they're playing mahjong, and she gives this whole big speech to Eleanor, right?
Yes.
Nick's mom. And at one point during the speech in the movie, she says, you know, I do feel like I'm worthy. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm worthy. And I thought that was an interesting line in the movie, the way that kind of played out, because I never got the feeling from her character prior to her getting to Singapore that she was any sort of insecure or felt unworthy or anything like that. And now I guess I'm wondering does that line happen in the book? And is there any sort of more setup for her character prior to that would make that line land better?
I don't recall that line being in the book anywhere.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of hard to search for a specific line when I'm in a paper copy book.
Yeah.
But I don't remember there being anything to that effect. And I didn't get that kind of vibe from Rachel in the book either.
Okay.
That like she was really insecure about that kind of thing. But we do know maybe a little bit more about Rachel's background in the book. So we know that her and her mom, for like most of her childhood, they were super poor. Yeah. And her mom like worked at different like waitressing jobs and like dirt poor.
That's alluded to in the movie, but never really, at least from what I recall, never really explicitly stated.
So, I mean, you could factor that in. Yeah. And I also just think that like being around these kind of people would probably be enough to make anyone feel like crap.
Right. I 100% agree that that makes sense. I was probably just overthinking it. I think it does. I was reading into it like she meant throughout her whole life when she says, this is the first time I actually feel worthy.
Well, that is what that implies.
Yeah. And to me, it was like, well, I didn't realize that was because when we meet her in the beginning of the movie, she seems like a very self-possessed, confident, she's a professor at NYU, the youngest professor in the faculty. We don't see anything that alludes to her being any sort of, anything other than a brilliant and confident young woman. And then she's like, I finally feel worthy. I'm like, wait, you didn't feel worthy? Like, when did that, And it was just one of those things I was like, I mean, I get it over the course of this journey of the film that she's felt very much, felt like she doesn't stack up to these people throughout the whole course of this movie. And I get that. And if that's what she's talking about, that's fine. Like I said, I may be overthinking it a little. I was just kind of like, all right. But I guess it also kind of makes sense to some extent, like you said, with her upbringing, being very poor and that sort of thing. Does she dramatically burn the mom? Not burn, not like physically, but emotionally.
She like roasts her a little bit.
Roasts the mom. Basically gives her the smackdown and says, you know what? The big emotional climax in the movie is Rachel asserting her self-worth to the mom and saying, when your son gets married, it'll be because of me. So you think about that every time you're with him and his wife in the future. And then she's like, bam, mahjong, and slams down the tiles. And I assume she won. I don't know how to play mahjong. So I was like, I assume that's impressive, but I don't know.
I mean, it mirrors the poker scene from the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
So I have to assume that she won.
No.
Or bluff.
Contextually, or bluff. That's the thing. It could be bluff because she bluffs in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what it is, but it seems like she just won because in the movie, in that scene, the mom puts down her tiles and it seems like she won, but then Rachel says her piece and puts down her tiles, and I assume she actually won. I don't know. Again, I don't know because I don't know how to play mahjong. So I was like, all right, well, that again, contextually, I assume that's what happens. It's the same. It is the poker scene in any James Bond movie or whatever. I get how it works, and I appreciated that, doing it. And I like that they didn't explain it. Like, that's fine. You don't need to explain. I got it. I was just wondering if the Mahjong Smackdown is from the book.
If we have any listeners
Yeah.
who know how to play mahjong, is it
Yeah. Mahjong. I don't know how exact. It's mahjong. I
Please
don't know.
tell us if she won.
Yeah.
We would like to know.
Or if she bluffed or something.
But that scene is not in the book at all.
The whole confrontation between the two of them?
Not in the book at all.
Well, we're going to have to talk about how this ends
The
then.
book ends really differently.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, I assume, here and eventually.
Yeah.
I only have a couple more here real quick. Does Astrid savagely wrote... So throughout one of those, the B plots in this movie is that we find out that Astrid's husband, who is a commoner, is cheating on... I say a commoner. He's not of an old money family.
Right.
But he is like the head CEO of like a startup,
Yeah.
and, he's got money and stuff. But we find out eventually that he's cheating on Astrid. And he sort of implies that a lot of this, that the reason for this is because he feels like he's not enough. He feels insecure and he feels it's just like nothing he does matters and that sort of thing. So he can cheat on, like him cheating on her doesn't matter because nothing he does matters and all that. And at the end of the movie, Astrid pretty much stands up to him and goes, look, fuck you. Like she kind of just roasts him and calls him a coward and that he's not a man. And I'm kind of torn on this. I don't want to talk about it, but does that happen in the movie or in the book?
Okay, so that situation with Astrid and her husband is way more complicated.
Okay.
And the movie changed it and kind of like simplified it and watered it down a little.
Okay.
And it's only kind of resolved at the end of the book, but she doesn't really have... Like, they kind of go back and forth, but she doesn't have, like, the same kind of, like, big, empowering speech moment.
Again, I'm torn on that scene. I guess talking about it now makes as much sense as anything. Because I like it in the sense that she's, like, not putting up with his sort of, like, weird, self-deprecating guilt trip for him cheating on her. And it feels empowering. The scene reads like an empowering and feels like an empowering scene for Astrid. But at the same time, to me, the thing that's empowering is she basically goes to him, look, I can't make you okay with the fact that I'm a multi-billionaire. You're just a coward. You need to deal with the fact that I'm so obscenely wealthy that I can buy whatever I want. And I don't. If you can't deal with the fact that I'm literally made of money, go fuck yourself. And I'm like, okay, like again, it reads empowering and it feels empowering, but the empowering statement is, I'm rich as fuck, bitch. Like, she's like, I'm gonna spend $2 million on a pair of earrings, and you're just gonna deal with it. It's like,
yes, but. Also, I think you can't ignore the background noise of gender.
Yes,
in that.
No, you're right. I don't disagree. And that's why it does feel empowering. I think that's why I said it's why I'm torn on it. It's not that it's I am torn because it does feel like there is the gender dynamic going on in a traditionally. I don't even know if I say traditionally patriarchal society. I actually don't know enough about Singapore and sort of how I think it is also somewhat like matriarchal elements of it are pretty strong as well. At least from what we see in the film, it seems that way. So I don't know, but like I can't kind of comment on the gender politics of Singapore, but viewing it through a Western lens, it definitely feels like an empowering feminist moment. But it's, again, my lefty self cannot not look at it through the lens of deal with my obscene wealth, you bitch. I don't know. It's weird. It's a complicated scene for me. It was interesting.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I think maybe I have a little more tendency to look at it through a like, here is a man who maybe can't handle the fact that his wife is worth more money than he is.
Yeah. And that's fair. I think,
I think regardless of what level of wealth,
right,
that does kind of make him a little bitch.
No, you're not wrong. I do think that the gender dynamics there are really important to the scene. And it is why I'm like, yeah. And I like really liked that scene. There was a couple lines, I guess, of it that felt and rubbed me a little bit wrong where she talks about her wealth. But I do think that the idea that a guy who can't deal with the fact that his woman his spouse has more money than him, makes more money than him. It's definitely the point of the scene. I think maybe for me, it's loses a bit of its punch when the person delivering it is that level of obscene wealthy. Maybe it's because I don't think people of that obscene wealth should exist. Not that the people shouldn't exist, that they shouldn't be having that much obscene wealth. But anyways.
That's a whole other conversation. Yeah, but in the book, that situation, it kind of boils down to the same thing, that he doesn't know how to handle the fact that she is worth so much, and he doesn't like interacting with her family because he feels snubbed by them. Yeah, but there are a lot more twists and turns to it in the book.
All right, we won't dwell on that anymore. Final question: does Nick do his second proposal on the airplane as she's getting ready to return to America? And does he have his mom's ring that this signifies to Rachel that Eleanor has accepted her? No. Okay.
None of that. Zero of that.
Again, you said the ending's very different. Yes. So, all right. Well, we'll get to that. So that's not in the book, and we'll get to that very shortly. But first, we're going to do Lost in Adaptation.
Just show me the way to get out of here, and I'll be on my way.
Was it lost?
Yes, and I want to get unlost as soon as possible.
All right. First question here that I was confused about. What does Nick do in the States? Does he have a job, or is he just professionally handsome?
Professionally handsome. He is also a professor.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Did they say that? I don't think that's
I don't know if they said that or not. If I'm remembering right, he's a history professor.
Okay.
At the same...
At NYU?
At NYU.
Okay. Interesting. Because, I was just... I didn't notice what he... I don't remember the movie telling us what he did. So I was like, was he just hanging out there, banging Rachel? I'm like... I mean, sure.
He could.
He has the... Yeah, it's he could. That's what I was wondering.
It's not he can't afford it.
Yeah, but I assumed based on the reason that he was over there, that he was there for a reason to do something. Yes. He went to school and then was doing something other than just, being in a relationship. So, okay. History professor at NYU. Next question. Was what was her name? Araminta. Was she involved in the dead fish thing? I'm assuming not. But it was on that trip, and I wasn't sure who did it.
No, she was not. The implication, I guess we never find out for sure, technically. The implication is that the Francesca character that they combined with Mandy was responsible for that. Araminta likes Rachel.
Yeah,
she's
it seemed like it.
Oblivious.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was like, it just seemed weird because she's friends with these people who are just, cruel, evil people. I was like, I don't think I'm friends with any evil people, so...
do you know, though?
I feel pretty confident that I'm not... Sorry, at least that nobody I would invite to my bachelor party is an evil person, but who knows, I guess. Final question for Lost in Adaptation. What was it... Okay, well, this... I don't know if this... Because this isn't in the movie, or is it? Or in the book? So let me read it first, I guess. So in the movie, like I said... Rachel confronts Eleanor and lays the verbal smackdown and kind of, does the mahjong power move, and it wins over the mom, and she gives Nick permission, gives Nick her ring, which was introduced earlier in the movie, basically saying, yes, you go marry Rachel, that's fine. So we've already established that the ending is very different in the book. So do you have maybe you can just speak to the movie maybe if you want here, as opposed to, because I'm asking what specifically it was that basically won over Eleanor, or was it just Rachel being a self-possessed, super independent, strong woman? She was like, okay, you'll take care of Nick, or I don't know. What
okay,
do you think?
At the end of the book, Nick's mom is not won over.
Okay.
Nick and Rachel don't get engaged.
Okay.
We actually aren't even sure if they're definitely going to get back together. because they do like break up.
So they very much gave us a Hollywood happy ending.
Yes, they gave us a very Hollywood happy ending. I mean, at the end of the book, there's like, it's implied that they're probably going to get back together. But his mom is very much not won over. That's not a thing in the book.
Okay.
It might be in the sequel. I don't know.
Right. Maybe they pulled a little bit.
Yeah.
But
maybe they did. So in the movie, they hinted at this, and it was more expanded on in the book. But basically, Nick's mom like let him grow up at the grandma's house.
Yeah,
like,
they do say
that. He lived there.
Yeah,
and she did that so that he would be like her favorite.
Yeah,
so that
he says that.
He would be like the favored grandchild
because she wasn't the favorite.
Right, because she was not the favorite because I guess her family wasn't like quite as rich.
Well, and she says it in the movie. She says that. Well, I don't know why she wasn't the favorite of the grandma, but she also says eventually that she married a commoner. Basically, I think is the implication, or she married somebody who the grandma didn't approve of and didn't give her ring, or something like that.
She married into the family.
Oh,
so it was that the grandma didn't give her husband.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Okay.
But the ring is not an element.
Okay.
In the book. So what I would presume they're going for in the movie is this idea that like Rachel reminds her of like, this is what you went through.
Yeah.
Because you were not accepted by your mother-in-law.
Right.
Here's your chance to break that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's kind of what I figured. It didn't feel super explicit or obvious to me what it was that won her over. Because her speech is sort of, the speech Rachel gives at the end is sort of, it meanders to a couple different topics. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know if it meanders, but it just, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. She basically calls her out and is like, I turned down, I have the power here. I'm in charge. Yeah. I'm the captain now. And I couldn't figure out if it was, but yeah, that explanation you gave makes a lot of sense. So yeah. Well, that was all I had for Lost in Adaptation. Let's move on to Better in the Book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
All right. Better in the Book. So the very opening scene where they're at the hotel.
Yeah.
And this is when Nick and Astrid and their like kids. They almost nailed it. I had this under the movie Nailed It, and then I had to move it in my notes because in the movie they end it with her saying to like the guy at the front desk of the hotel.
Yeah.
What's the name?
I don't remember his name, but yeah.
No, not his name, but like his title.
Oh, well, he's the manager. Or you mean the concierge?
The concierge.
Because the manager shows up at one point too,
yes.
But I don't know which one you're talking about. The concierge.
The concierge.
Okay.
So in the movie, after they basically buy the hotel out from under them, she turns to that guy and she's like, you're going to need a mop to clean up the floor or something like that because there was mud on the floor. But in the book, she turns to him and throws his own line back at him and says, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Think is so much better.
It is. And that's what I thought she was going to say. I thought she was going to say something like that.
I don't know why they changed that because that was something that like initially got me into that book. Like I read that scene and I like put the book down for a minute and I was like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly thought that's what she was going to say, was like something along those lines. So, that is disappointing because that would have been better.
They came so close to nailing it, too.
Yeah.
It was like almost beat for beat up to that point.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of really didn't like that Nick tells her that his family is so rich while they're on the plane.
Yeah, I assume he tells her earlier.
He does not.
Oh. Well, that's fucking nuts. Because I thought it was weird that he told her on the plane and not previously.
So, okay, it reflects better on him. I'll give it that. But like basically she doesn't know until they like show up at shows up at his grandma's freaking palace.
Oh my goodness.
And there's like a trail of hints that she's kind of like oblivious to.
That's interesting.
And I feel like it's so much more interesting.
That's fun. It would definitely be a fun thing. I mean, now, yeah, it would be a fun thing if the movie was titled something different and we didn't know what was going to be going on in, to where like that would be a fun reveal for us as an audience too. Like watching her, or even if we knew, I guess watching her be oblivious and like missing all these obvious clues would have been very fun until she shows up and it's like, wait a second. But it definitely would have been a downvote for Mr. Nick.
Yeah.
It's already weird to me that it's waited that long to mention they've dated for a year, and she does call him out on it, at least in the movie. She's like, why the hell did you never tell me that your family's literally like billionaires? And so it would have been even more like weird to not mention it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah. But it is fun.
So actually I want to kind of talk about that element more, because I have a couple notes in here that are basically equal up to this one big thing, which was like kind of the main thing for me that I liked better about the book. And I think like part of what made the book interesting to me was like the way that these like old money people behaved, because the movie portrays them kind of more like celebrities. Yeah, like it's almost like a Kardashian ish kind of a thing, like when they're like going into the wedding and there's photographers there taking pictures of them. And it portrays them
almost like royalty, like British royalty or something.
But like I don't know, like it was crazy reading the book, because like okay, like Picklin, her family, when she says that she's dating Nick Young, they straight up don't know who that is. Oh. Because the old money elite are so rich
and so reserved
that they can basically go off the grid without having to go off the grid. Yeah. And like she drives her to the grandma's palace mansion thing, and her friend is like gaping at it along with her. Like they're both just like gaping at this place. And Paiklin's like, I don't know who these people are, but they're richer than God.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I think I know why the movie does what it does for the spectacle. Yeah. For the party lit, for the Gatsby feel to these people. Again, making them more like celebrities, but like royalty. Where they're not like removed from society, but they're old money, like conservative, very refined rich people.
Right. And it made for some interesting like distinctions and like comparisons between like the new rich and the old rich. Yeah. And then even between
Isn't that a big theme in Gatsby?
Kind of.
Nouveau Rich. I remember learning about Nouveau Rich in some literary. Nouveau Riche. Yeah, I don't remember if it was Gatsby or something else,
but there's that element to it, and then there's like the distinction between like the older generation of this old money and like the younger generation who kind of wants to be able to throw the money around a little bit more, but like the older generation still has control over it. And it was just like, to me, it was more interesting.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds, it's definitely interesting. I think it makes, I understand for the spectacle.
Yes.
For what this movie was going for. I get it. But yeah, I think there's maybe a more interesting social dynamic going on there in the book, potentially.
Which I'm going to talk about that a little more later.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to talk about, because that was literally like 4 of my points here, kind of all equaled up to that big point. So the other last thing that I want to talk about is that we know at the end of the movie, kind of the climax, that they hired a PI to look into Rachel's family. Yeah. So we actually know that throughout almost the whole entire book. Oh, okay. We know that his mother has some kind of dirt on her. We don't know what it is. And it kind of makes for an interesting dynamic, because then, like, when his mother's being nice to her face, we know that she's, like, plotting.
Right.
So we don't need to have, like, this actual confrontation where she tells Rachel to her face that she's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because we know that the mother is, like, kind of scheming behind their backs.
Yeah.
And I also think that makes that revelation about her father make a little more sense. Like, I feel like in the movie it almost kind of comes out of nowhere that they're like, oh, by the way, we hired a PI and your dad's alive.
It definitely does come out of nowhere, like, because they mentioned once or a couple times early in the movie that her dad's dead. She says her dad's dead. But it's never really remarked on as a super important thing, but it does come up at least twice in conversations where she's like, oh, actually my dad's dead. Yeah, it's different. I think I don't hate the way the movie does it. Yeah, with the reveal, but
I think they did, like, in the movie, I feel like they tried to do the setup, remind, payoff. Yeah, but they didn't remove the remind far enough from the setup.
I do agree with that.
To where it felt all connected.
Yeah, for sure. Without watching it twice, I think you're right that the setup and the reminder were both front-loaded.
Yeah, they're too close together.
In the beginning, yeah, to where
and it makes the reveal feel a little bit out of left field.
It almost would have been good if there was something halfway through or something closer to the reveal where she says my dad's dead again to somebody and there's like a glance from Eleanor or something, like something that we would have no idea what it is.
Yes.
But where, like, Eleanor, like, makes a face that we see from the corner, like a knowing look or face, something. And that's like, we're like, what's that about? And we're like, what's going on with her dad? You know, like, just something like that. So that I agree. That would have helped that.
All right. That was all I had for Better in the Book.
All right. Let's move on to Better in the Movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
All right, so the big first thing, number one thing, they pared down a lot. This is like an over 500-page book.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
It's a pretty thick book. So I can get behind the paring down because the book is a little bloated. It's interesting, but it's a little bloated. And, like, kind of like a lot happens and yet nothing happens.
So it's just like The Great Gatsby.
Yeah. So I can, like...
I know, like, for any of my literary people out there, I have not read The Great Gatsby since, like, 9th grade, so don't take that with a grain of salt, but that was my memory from high school, was that, boy, does not much happen in this book.
I mean, it's reflective of the era and the emptiness of the American
I understand
dream.
that's exactly what's going on now, but as a 9th grader, I was like, boy, this book is fucking boring.
So yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Peeklin is maybe more obnoxious in the movie, but I think she's also funnier.
Yeah.
She's more interesting.
She's definitely obnoxious, but she is fun.
I liked that they expanded her role.
Yeah.
A bit. I liked that they gave Rachel more of like an ally in her. Not that she wasn't in the book. She was, but she definitely wasn't in it as much.
Gotcha.
This was just like a random moment that made me laugh, but when they're on the bachelor party boat and somebody like shoots a firework and it just like immediately plops into the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. He also blasts a model off the stage. The second one he shoots, like kills a woman. We just glossed right over it.
Maybe she was only mortally wounded.
Yeah, hopefully.
So in the book, there is another character at the bachelorette party. So in the movie, it's Astrid who shows up at the bachelorette party and helps her take care of the fish.
Yeah.
In the book, there's a whole nother character named Sophie, who's also like a cousin who's super down to earth. And she happens to be there and helps out Rachel. But I feel like it made a lot of sense to just have Astrid show up instead of introducing a whole new character. Especially since she doesn't really factor into any of the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Maybe she's in the sequel. I don't know.
Maybe.
I am a sucker for a makeover montage. You all know this. So I liked that.
Yeah.
I also liked that I felt like, I mean, I have some thoughts on the ending. I wasn't really sure where to put the ending. So I just have it under my general notes.
Yeah.
But I did like that Rachel had a little bit more fight to her in the movie. She had like a little bit more like, I'm going to play chicken with you. Well, yeah. I'm not going to move.
Yeah, I liked that. And it made sense for her character that they established in the beginning of the movie, as she is, they say, and I don't know if this is the exact same in the book, but that she's the youngest professor at NYU, or tenured professor at NYU. I don't know, whatever. So like either the youngest professor or youngest tenured professor or something at NYU. She's
a native New Yorker.
A New Yorker. She's the daughter of an immigrant who was poor. Like, she has a lot. She by all merits, she should have a lot of fight in her, and she seems to in the movie. And she gets beaten down a lot, but she still keeps finding that, and that made a lot of sense to her character to me. And so that totally, like, I totally bought it from her character in the film.
I mean, it's not like a total change from her character in the book. It's just like a little bit more amped up, and I did like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the movie. Nailed it.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
All right, what did the movie nail?
I loved the texting sequence at the beginning. Like I said, it wasn't exactly like it happened in the book, but I thought it was a really good and really visual way to show how that kind of circle works.
It might be the only thing I've ever heard Bo Burnham say that I disagree with. I know it's a random comment, but when Bo Burnham was making 8th grade, he said something in an interview at some point where he's like, I always hate in movies where when people text and it pops up on the screen and you like see the text pop up on the screen. He's like, oh, it takes me out or whatever. And I don't agree with that. I think it can work very well, and this is an instance where it does work.
Yeah, I think it works really well in this. They nailed Peaklin's family.
Oh yeah, Ken Jeong.
Gaudy and trashy, but ultimately good hearts. The stuffed tiger in Nick's grandma's house is in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the prequel episode, didn't we?
I think so.
Or either that maybe. Or I might have just read about it. Either we mentioned it or I read about it.
Yeah. Oliver.
The gay cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will say he's more flamboyant in the movie.
A little more arch.
They dialed him up.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed his character.
Yeah, he's fun.
Nick and Colin's friendship, I thought they nailed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they have very genuine friendship in the film.
And the dead fish scene.
Yeah.
Plays out almost exactly as it happens.
There you go. All right. We're going to hit a few odds and ends, and then we're going to go to the final verdict. But first, let's talk about some just random stuff.
Okay, I want to talk about the scene where she throws wine at him.
What the hell was that scene? We stopped and talked about that scene with each other for several minutes of like, what just happened? If you've seen this movie, you know what we're talking about. At the first party?
Yeah, the first family party at his grandma's house. I think she's supposed to have like spilled wine on him.
What's supposed to have happened, I would bet, is that he's supposed to have stopped short. And she like stumbles into him.
And her wine splashes on his shirt.
But what very clearly happens, as we see in the film, is he stops, turns around and looks at her, and she stops and then dumps her wine on his chest.
I think they just did a really poor job of like choreographing.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, it was just terribly choreographed, and they only did it once, maybe. Like
maybe they didn't have an extra shirt.
He had a whole closet of them. We saw it. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, because it literally is one of the worst choreographed like little actions in a film like that I've seen in a while, where it literally
like it looks like she just throws it at him.
It's so funny because I've seen way better in movies where a femme fatale is distracting a man by spilling wine on him on purpose, I've seen better fake performances by the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like a female character or whoever character accidentally spills a drink on somebody, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, let me get that for you. Like every single one of those like over the top cheesy like whoopsies is more convincing than her spilling wine on Nick in this scene. It's ridiculous.
No, yeah, we literally, lest you think we're exaggerating, we stopped the movie because we were both like, wait a minute.
What just happened?
What?
Yeah. It was really, really weird. Very weird.
And then I have a note about the water aisle because I ranted for a minute about it ruining her dress.
Yeah.
But like we said, when you're that rich, it doesn't
matter.
fucking matter.
Yep.
And then the only other note I have is about the ending.
Okay.
So,
My only notes were first, I was like, I'm getting La La Land feels.
yeah.
It's very similar in the sense that I'm enjoying this. I think this is a well done film. But I just have a hard time caring about the petty problems of the uber rich. Like, not that you can't tell that story. And I think, again, this movie does a pretty good job of it. I did feel for Rachel and I cared about her character Nick seems like a nice dude and I wanted their relationship to work. And I liked a lot of the characters in the movie and their interactions. But at the same time, it's like, fuck you. You have $8 trillion.
Yeah.
Buy a new friend. I don't like. It's not fair. It's just, and people could say the same. And I don't even, somebody in a certain situation could look at us and could look at me and feel the exact same way. And I wouldn't think twice about acknowledging the reality of that. You know what I mean? I get that. It's just when you look at that, it's like and now in La La Land, it was more extreme to some extent because they were also like living their dreams on top of like being rich at the end of the La La Land, not the beginning. But anyways, it was kind of a similar vibe that I was getting of just like, I don't know. Yeah. But it was super fun and colorful. I really liked the character introductions. I thought it moved really well. I thought the pacing of the film
was great.
Was very good for a rom-com. It was an hour and 40 long, but even that moved really well. And it didn't remotely feel like it moved incredibly well. And it was shot beautifully. The production design was all awesome. Like I loved a lot of the elements of the movie.
And I liked when they did like a location change and they would put like the location up on the screen.
Yeah.
I liked that they just went ahead and made it like giant and gaudy.
Yeah, giant and gaudy, and it looked like the Gatsby. It looked like the new Gatsby, which I haven't seen, the Leonardo DiCaprio Gatsby, that Art Nouveau font or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Art Deco, whatever font with like the designs in it. It was like that. The style of the film, I thought was really fun and interesting. I wanted to eat all the food from that food court. It's not a food court. I don't know. It's got a name. That's a famous food court. And again, he's not lying in the film when one of them says, because I think I've seen Anthony Bourdain eat there. I thought either him or I think it was Anthony Bourdain. And he does mention that several of the stalls in that food court have Michelin stars, which is like, they're like a food truck. It's like a food cart on the side of the thing, but they have like Michelin stars because their food's that good.
Full confession, after reading half of this book yesterday and then watching the movie, we had to have Chinese food for dinner.
Yes. It's just terrible,
like it was
Americanized.
Just terrible Americanized, but it was the best we could do in this small Midwestern town.
Yep. Close as we could get, but gosh darn it, I
had to have it.
Some sort of Chinese food. But yeah, definitely the butchered American version of Chinese food. I say butchered American. It's Americanized version. It's its own thing. It's just a spin on that.
It's greasy and delicious.
Yeah. But no, I was in the same boat. I was like, yep, let's do that. at the beginning of this movie, and now it goes a direction I wasn't expecting, but when Astrid and her husband were introduced, their first scene together was super fascinating to me, and their dynamic was really, and Gemma Chan just like jumps off the screen at me. Like her presence is like super, like she's a really good actress, and I've seen her in a handful of things. I looked at her IMDb because I was like, I recognize her, and there was like a handful of movies where I've seen her in small parts in. She was in an episode of Sherlock. She plays in the episode of Sherlock. She's the tea girl. There's one of the episodes.
It's been so long.
In like the first or second season, there's a girl who works in a museum who does the tea ceremony, and she's that actress who does that. And I was like, that's what. And a handful of other things. She's really good, but the dynamic between her and her husband, I thought was really interesting, and his. I was like, I just want to watch their story and like her as this powerful CEO.
That's
and like
really interesting that you say that, because as I was reading the book, I was way more invested in Astrid's storyline than I was in Nick and Rachel.
Yes,
because I was like, Astrid deserves better than this clown. She deserves so much better than what is happening to her right now.
And that was, I felt that way towards the end to some extent. But initially, when he's introduced, I liked him a lot. At like him being like a young commoner and upstart who's trying to make it in the world, and he's but I like her, like, so their first introduction, I was like, wow, I really want to watch a movie about these two people. And then it gets kind of interesting. It still is interesting, but I was like, yeah, Astrid is, I want to watch a movie about her. She's way more interesting than Nick and Rachel are to me. And now again, they're cute, whatever, but like Astrid is like Beyonce. Like, I want to watch a movie about Beyonce. I don't want to watch a movie about the other fucking whatchamacallit. Well, TLC, right? Not TLC. TLC?
Please, you're gonna kill me.
Child.
Please, you're gonna kill me.
I don't want to watch a movie about one of the other Destiny's Children. TLC? Oh, not TLC. I know who TLC is. T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili.
I'm gonna die.
I remember their names.
Right,
T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili. Right?
I'm gonna die right now.
The other Destiny's Children, I don't care about them. Rachel is one of the other ones.
Okay, all right, yes. And their story even was like I said, it was like there was a lot more twists and turns. It was weirder in the book.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, or at least as far as we know, he's just having an affair.
Yeah.
He's just cheating on her. In the book, he's not actually cheating on her. He like sets it up to look like he's cheating on her because he wants out, and he thinks it's more likely to like happen if she wants out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. It's just assumed that he is cheating.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what it seems like in the movie.
I mean, that's as far as we know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a sequel, so maybe they'll like work that in somehow.
Maybe
to the next movie, but who knows?
I also was like, I hope I'm enjoying this as a look into like a completely foreign, and I don't mean foreign. I mean foreign in the traditional sense of foreign, but I also just mean foreign to my understanding. You know what I mean? Culture. And I want to hope that this is like that I am learning something about this culture. Like I want to believe that this is like a good lens into that world. I don't know if it is though. It's that weird thing of like, I don't know if what I'm watching is a misrepresentation or is like a really good, interesting cultural perspective. Okay. You know what I mean?
Knowing nothing about this culture as a white girl
from the Midwest,
who is the opposite of rich.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the book is a better. I feel like if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Probably the book.
Okay. I was just, it was interesting because I wasn't sure, and I was like, this is fascinating. But I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, like when you go to a Chinese restaurant as a poor Midwestern American and you're like, I'm having Chinese food. And then somebody who knows what Chinese food is like, sure you are, bud. You know what I mean? I'm like, is that this? Like, am I eating American Chinese food from the China Walk down the street? Or am I actually getting a somewhat representative experience of, you know, this culture, this society? I don't know. And I'm hoping it's the
I have
latter.
some kind of similar more thoughts on that in my final verdict.
I talked about the slash fic where Rachel fucks the lawyer and Nick fucks his best friend. Somebody write that. I guarantee it exists based on that movie. And my final note was they put together that proposal party very quickly.
Yeah.
He proposes to her,
It
and that
almost feels
night
surreal.
it almost feels like
It wasn't actually
it
happening.
wasn't actually either that or it was added on. Like an afterthought, like we need another big party to wrap this movie up.
Yeah.
Oh, they stay one more night and they have a party. We'll just go shoot a party on the top of this hotel. Great. End of the movie. Like, and that wasn't really in the script maybe or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That doesn't happen in the book.
Feels
so.
very tacked on or just sort of like out of nowhere. Like what?
It felt kind of surreal to me, similarly to the way that the end of Black Klansman felt surreal to me.
Yeah.
Not like the same thing, because they're not the same thing, but where it almost was like I was asking myself, like, is this a dream?
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be a dream sequence?
Right. Just the party or the whole proposal?
Just the party.
Okay. Yeah, it could. Yeah, maybe. It does. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it could feel, because it is kind of similar. Everybody like high-fiving and like, yeah, woo, yeah. Everybody's just like over the moon, like super excited about this now. I'm always like, did they just shoot the rap party and stick it in their movie? Because it's almost what it felt like.
So.
Like it's just the rap party and it's the two main actors coming in and everybody been like, yeah, the two main actors from the movie are here. And they're like, this also works for the movie. Let's just put it in. Like it could have been. I don't know.
Oh God, I kind of hope so.
It's the rap party.
So the ending in the movie is so much rosier. And it's so Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where to put this, because I don't hate a Hollywood ending. I like a Hollywood ending, even. Like, I do. And I think that Hollywood endings work really well for movies.
Yeah.
Because I think we want to feel satisfied at the end of a movie.
Especially for a movie like this.
Yes,
which is why they did it.
especially for a rom-com.
Yeah.
I don't know that we leave the theater feeling good if a rom-com doesn't end happily.
Especially a rom-com with what this movie was going for. You kind of can't take a huge risk with the... I feel like they probably felt like maybe they couldn't take a huge risk with the ending because they wanted to prove that you can make a mainstream studio-produced rom-com with an all Asian American or Chinese cast that people are going to go see and want to see more of.
Yes.
Maybe we don't do the more risky ending for this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I agree. And I feel like the ending in the book is maybe more realistic.
Yeah.
And I think sets it up for a sequel better.
Yeah.
But then when they made the movie, they didn't know, I guess, if they were going to get
probably not.
a sequel. So there's that.
Yeah, because in comparison, like we mentioned La La Land earlier, but I really like the end of La La Land. I think it's a very realistic ending. And I think it's an ending that makes a lot of sense for their characters, but it's not your traditional...
I just didn't really like La La Land all that much.
I didn't love it. I thought I enjoyed it, but I didn't love the movie. But I liked the ending, and I thought the ending really made sense. I thought it was it wasn't your traditional happy ending, but it worked for the characters, and it was a happy ending without being like a Hollywood happy ending. And I liked that a lot. And this kind of goes the more traditional Hollywood happy ending route.
Yes,
which,
definitely.
Again, I think
it's
works.
It's a Shakespeare comedy ending that ends with the two leads getting together and everybody's happy and ecstatic and they all get married.
Yep.
It's great.
All of them get married. Final verdict?
Final verdict.
Let's do it.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first. Verdict afterward.
All right, so there were things that I both liked and did not like about both the book and the movie. The book, as I said, was a little bloated. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of side plots, there's a lot of backstories. And having read it, it almost feels like nothing happened, like I said. Like, a lot happens, but also, like, I could probably only point to a handful of major plot points.
Yeah.
So the movie was more fun, and it was easier to follow. And it had that great Hollywood ending, like we said.
Yeah.
However, to me, the book had way sharper teeth. It had more of that social commentary. Like, there's one point in the book, I didn't mark it, I wish I had, where I think she's talking with Peaklin's father, who's maybe a little bit more serious than he is in the movie.
Yeah, because in the movie, he's a cartoon character.
Yeah,
he's played by Ken Jeong, and he's kind of
silly.
a cartoon character.
And they're talking about, like, real estate, because one of the things that is so impressive about his grandma's palace is that it's on a huge piece of land.
Yeah.
And land is really valuable in Singapore because it's all they're on an island and it's all like super developed.
Right.
Like, so there's not a lot of land to work with.
Yeah.
So they're sitting on this huge piece of land, which is part of what makes them so wealthy.
Yeah.
And then they're talking about this, and they're talking about, like, oh, these great innovative developers that have built all of these amazing high-rise building. And then there's a footnote, and you follow it down to the bottom of the page, and there's a footnote about, like, one of the native people of Singapore. It was the Malay, I think it was.
Well, that's one of the things that the movie we talked about in the prequel, that the Malay people were completely, like, left out of the film.
And so you follow it down to this footnote, and the footnote says, like, it's about, like, the native, like, home structures of the Malay people, and they live in these villages, and it says, like, and now, due to these great developers, there's only one village left.
Right.
So, like, the social commentary, it's a little more biting.
Yeah.
Like, the book
the
has
fact that there's, like, any
teeth.
Well, the fact that that's even, like, that's not again, the movie, we mentioned that people commented on the fact that the movie completely glosses over not only commenting on anything like that, it doesn't even include this minority group in the movie. Like, supposedly there's, like, none of them in the film. I don't know. I have a hard time telling what, but from what we read and when we talked about in the prequel, is that they were kind of completely unrepresented in the film when they make up a not insignificant portion of the population of Singapore, yet somehow all we see is the Chinese Singaporeans.
Wealthy, and not that it's, like, a huge element in the book, but it is there.
Yeah.
And it's not there in the movie, at least not that I really saw.
Yeah.
And like I said, like, a big part of what made the book interesting to me was the dive into how these old, rich, super rich people run their lives.
Yeah.
And the way that they just look down on everyone. Like, there's the difference between the old rich and the new rich, and the older generations and the younger generations. And, like, the Singapore Chinese hate the mainland Chinese and just, like, look down on them, and they're horrible and, like, dirty and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the movie, I felt like, kind of replaced that tension with a tension of, like, between, like, traditional Chinese values and, like, quote unquote New World American values.
Sort of Western.
Yeah.
But that's one of the big conflicts is with the mom, is between following your passions, which is, like, a very Western millennial thing to do versus like family and that sort of thing.
Which to me felt maybe a little done.
Yeah.
And I suspect that they did that to open it up to maybe a more Western or Westernized audience.
Feels like it. Also, an audience that is Yeah, maybe Western, and also just a younger audience. Maybe not younger, but an audience that, yeah, I think you're probably right. A Western audience where that is something that we think
but
about.
like to me, not that anyone else has to feel that this way, but to me that was just like, it was just less interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been maybe talked about a little bit more than like what the book was doing.
Yeah. Well, that would feel like my point. That would definitely, I don't know if I would connect with it as much, or if it would make as much sense to me, but it would definitely feel like a more if that was the discussion was between sort of the mainland Chinese and traditional Chinese or Singaporean Chinese, and the difference between the old and the new rich a little bit more, and that sort of thing, and that conflict would have felt like more of a look into this world. Yes. Than what I'm seeing feels like a westernized version. Like I said, it potentially feels like a more westernized version of that story. Anyway, sorry.
No, and I agree with you. I think it does. So in this case, I'm gonna have to give it to the book, because while the movie was arguably more fun, I feel like it was a watered down version of what the book presented, which, once you got past the soap opera cast of characters and all of their melodramas, was deeply, deeply fascinating.
All right. Well, there you go. Crazy Rich Asians. The book is better, according to Katie.
Well, we'll see if anyone agrees with me.
We'll see. I guarantee you it's not as controversial of an opinion as mine was on Hitchhiker's Guide. Fight me. But no, that was interesting, and I actually did enjoy the film. All my leftist critique aside, I did enjoy the film, and I thought it was a well done movie. And I'd be interested to see. I wouldn't be surprised if the sequels. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if the sequels take some more risks and have more social commentary than the first one did. I will say I'll be disappointed if they don't. Yeah. If they don't have a little bit more of a critique of the wealth disparity, of the societal issues within Singapore and that sort of thing, if those aren't present, I would be disappointed, because I can see why you wouldn't do that maybe in your first movie, where you want to make sure that it's successful. Yeah. But it was successful. You're shooting 2 sequels. You can assume they're probably going to be pretty successful. You can maybe now put your message more in the film than maybe you could in the first one. Maybe they're not going to have a message. Maybe they're just. So. But I think that would be interesting if that was the case. So, all right. Before we get to what we're going to be doing next time, I'd like to remind you that, as always, you can rate and review us on all of the podcast platforms where you listen to us. iTunes. Still trying to figure out Stitcher. I don't know what's going on there. If you've been listening to us on Stitcher, hopefully you migrated to a different platform, because I will not update and I don't know what to do about it. But Spotify, a handful of other places. Rate and review us on there. It helps us out a lot. Spreads us around to more and more people. Also, you can follow us on all the social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads. You can get Katie's hot takes about Game of Thrones on Twitter that I co-sign. She writes them, I co-sign. But yeah, not that many hot takes, but she did comment about it last night.
There were more hot takes last night.
Yeah. Check us out on all social media. And Katie, what are we doing next?
Up next, we are doing a Hitchcock film.
Ooh.
We are doing Rear Window.
I've never seen Rear Window.
You've never seen Rear Window?
Which is funny, as the film student. No, I have not. I've seen clips of Rear Window.
I've seen a movie that you've never seen.
I've seen clips of Rear Window, but I've never seen the whole thing. I've seen parts of it.
But it is based on a short story.
Yeah.
Which is now also called Rear Window. It was originally called something else that escapes me at this moment, but it is now called Rear Window. And I believe it is in the public domain. So Sweet. If you want to read it before we do that episode, that's super easy for you.
Awesome. All right. Well, tune back in 2 weeks for Rear Window, and in 1 week for our preview of Rear Window and our discussion of our poll of Crazy Rich Asians. and whatever we're doing for learning things. So that's what's coming up. And then, little bonus tease, if you're still stuck around, Lord of the Rings is coming.
That's a summer series tease, everyone.
Summer series tease.
Summer series tease.
Last year we did Harry Potter. This year, it's one of the other big ones, Lord of the Rings. So look forward to that in about a month or so. All right, until that time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else.
Keep reading books.
Keep watching movies.
And keep being awesome.